In case you missed it, yesterday, some pieces and parts of the internet, especially in the cybersecurity community, sorta kinda caught on fire because there has been a new supply chain attack. Yes, much like SolarWinds, much like Kaseya VSA, there's a new cool kid on the block, and it is 3CX. Now, if you aren't familiar, 3CX is a VoIP or VoIP, voice over internet protocol, software solution and technology to be able to use soft phones or to make phone calls with computer technology, with digital stuff, right? If I may say, they are kind of a big deal. They're quite a big name in the managed service provider or small mid-market business communities in that channel. And they said, look, we're trusted by over 600,000 companies. They have about 12 million users every day. Take a look at some of their customers here. Hey, they've got some big names on here. Toyota, BMW, Honda, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, NHS, whole lot of airlines, hotels, card information, American Express, MIT. If you take a look at Shodan, you can see from the internet search engine, at least just kind of taking a look for the phone system management console. There are about, at the time of recording, about 200 and almost 20,000 publicly exposed hosts on the internet, but it doesn't come from a vulnerability. This attack, this supply chain threat, isn't going to be targeting down through some zero-day or CVE. It's a little bit more sinister. Because yesterday, CrowdStrike was the first to sort of sound the alarm saying, hey, March 29th, we're tracking some weird, unexpected malicious activity coming from a legitimate signed binary, like the actual, real 3CX desktop application. They say it ultimately ends up deploying some second stage payload, beaconing out to actor-controlled infrastructure, and in some cases, though it has been very, very small, very, very few actual cases of hands-on operations, post-exploitation activity. But this desktop app, this 3CX client, is available for Windows, Mac, Linux, and mobile. Just about everything. It sounds like the whole world is tracking. Look, there's exploitation currently on Windows, a little bit of Mac, but I don't think folks have seen it a whole lot. There's some chatter on that, though. And mostly the word on the street is, if we talk attribution, which is really, really hard, it's weird and tough to point the finger as to, hey, who's the culprit, who's responsible, but it looks like there's the word on the street, again, speculation, suspected nation-state involvement from DPRK. You can figure that out, right? Now, if you haven't put the puzzle pieces together yet, this could be really, really a big problem, especially with that ginormous attack surface and being a supply chain attack, having threats or malware or malicious backdoored code pushed down through what is seemingly a legitimate update. It's not going to look like malware. It looks legitimate when it's a signed 3CX update and code that might be pulled down from their installers or update software. Now, everyone is talking about this. SentinelOne jumped in the conversation. Sophos got in. We see a whole lot of other vendors, security providers, EDR providers, antivirus folks that are kind of coming at this thing, and something that I appreciate, like willing to share, willing to get the threat intelligence out there and information so that we can all kind of help each other in this weird, wild, hey, the sky's falling situation. But how this all came about, honestly, was that a couple of these vendors, these providers, these EDR, these AV solutions were starting to flag an alert and trigger on the client, on the 3CX desktop app, the executable itself, saying that it was malicious. And they were, maybe just killing the process. They were nuking it. They were getting it out of the air. And that way it would end up breaking a whole organization's phone systems, like communication devices. That got into a little bit of hot water, and it's kind of hard to tell, okay, is this a false positive? Is this a mistake? Is it something that we should allow? Is there some weird technology mishap going on? So a lot of folks thought they would end up going to the source. They'd straight up ask 3CX, like, hey, go to the forums, go to the support queue, try to open a ticket. Granted, that apparently cost $75 or something, I don't know. And they would ask, like, hey, is this a false positive? Is our antivirus or EDR provider just making a mistake? What's going on? Is there something shady here? And seemingly, there hasn't been a good response. I think there has been now, but there has been a certain amount of disgruntlement or general strange feeling on how this was all sort of been handled, and we'll touch on that in just a moment. But I do want to reiterate and reinforce, everyone is talking about this. If you go on the silly, stupid Twitterverse, hey, whatever, I know it's not everyone's favorite place anymore, but there are constantly new things coming out on new headlines, new reports, new journalist articles, new blogs, new write-up, new threat intel, anything. Another hot take, people doing some more malware analysis, people digging into the actual threats, getting into the nitty-gritty. It is almost nonstop with all the chatter that we're going to end up seeing, and probably even more coming down the pipe on this whole 3CX thing. Of course, you got the vendors coming out of the woodworks, right? Hey, CrowdStrike is going to end up popping up their blog, chatting about what they're doing for some of this threat intelligence and detection, what you can use with their product to be able to go hunt this thing down, yada, yada, yada. Total's doing the same thing. I think they took a little bit of a cool angle. They were digging into that update process, seeing what the updater or update.exe was actually doing, and then would follow that. Their blog posted really, really early, I think just to like, hey, get something out there, put a stake in the ground, and then repeatedly update it as things progressed. A little bit weird because look, you've just got, I don't know, what started as a, hey, we're tracking this, and then slowly disseminate more tactical info. But look, it's all about getting the information out there. SentinelOne in the fight, tracking how they're actually seeing some of the post-exploitation here. Looks like they actually saw an info stealer come through with this, despite all of the actual original attack chain to actually start communicating with the command and control server that I'll touch on in just a moment. I did want to note, hey, SentinelOne posted a little bit of the conversation surrounding what they might have been doing at the start when it wasn't clear if this was a false positive or a true positive, and maybe we're accidentally nuking things that we don't need to right off bat. Look, that's something that they chat a little bit more about. Totally understanding and acknowledging, look, not everyone is running Windows. It's not a whole Windows world. There are, of course, some folks in the Mac ecosystem. So an incredible malware analyst in that Mac world, Patrick Wardle, was given some info, trying to do some analysis, trying to do some investigation, digging into all of this. And he has an incredible Twitter thread if you want to go take a look at, as well as a blog post, super duper thorough, that he's gone ahead and shared. So I just wanted to make that aware for you if you are triggering into that Mac world. I'll be the first to admit I haven't played in this pool just yet, but I do want to give kudos, credit where credit is due. Patrick Wardle kind of, again, leading the charge on this. You've got Kevin Beaumont chatting about this thing on Mastodon. You've got Florian Roth, hey, dropping Sigma and YARA rules. You've got everybody kind of all in the fight, tracking this thing. But I would like, if I may, to showcase kind of what we've been seeing. I'll be the first to admit, it's like 5:30 in the morning. I'm not wearing a watch, but I haven't really slept, so cheers to that. I needed to get a video out today, and I'm sure you'll see why in just a moment, but I did want to at least shine the spotlight on this as quick as I can and try to be in the fight, in the trenches, alongside here, I don't know, in the grind with everyone. So I tried to get our write-up out and about as quick as I could, and everything that we've been tracking, but we wanted to get some more tactical information and not just be chasing another ambulance saying, hey, we see it. Hopefully we could have some more actual analysis and detail to it. So I gave all the same context that we've already done, blah, 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 showdown, shenanigans, false positive communications, whatever. The actual deep dive that I hope is kind of at least useful to you or interesting to actually get this thing started is, look, this desktop application, the client executable, runs an update. It reaches out to the cloud services that actually have the next batch of code and the repositories to give as an update to the application. But the updates are what have been compromised. From what we gather, everything that we're tracking so far, it is actually that supply chain threat where it's going to end up pulling down and retrieving the malware naturally. And I'm not going to be, hey, cutting through code, showing this live in the moment, and I'm sorry for that, but I hope at least the write-up can give you some sweet detail, because ultimately there are a couple interesting files and pertinent to this process in the attack chain. There is an ffmpeg.dll file present. Now, I know what you're thinking. Look, no, it's not FFmpeg, like the thing that almost everything uses and depends on. It's not like the extremely crazy big real FFmpeg. From everything that we know, it's just sort of like a weird fake masqueraded ffmpeg.dll that has a backdoor and immediately jumps to other code. Ultimately, it just ends up launching another payload. So please don't get too spooked. At least I don't know yet that, okay, real genuine FFmpeg is compromised. That doesn't seem to make sense to me at the moment, and I'm not alarmist enough to say the sky's falling in that regard yet. But look, if you've got other intel, please say the word. The ffmpeg.dll that gets invoked with this update ultimately ends up extracting a secondary payload and decrypting from another file, this d3d compiler 47.dll that ultimately has another piece of shellcode in there. Now, at the time that this all kind of caught fire, look, the virus total, online scanners, antivirus checks, there weren't a whole lot of things actually triggering on this. It was a flat 0. Everything's green, looking good all across the board. But now as the world is catching wind of this, we're kind of digging into it, doing the analysis, cutting up code, I don't know, looking in Ghidra, looking in X64 debug, trying to do whatever we can, and now finding all these breadcrumbs and puzzle pieces to say, ooh, the secondary payload that we could see from this backdoor FFmpeg DLL ultimately ends up decrypting an RC4 stream, presumably. That's kind of what we're tracking with a key, like a hard-coded static key that's oftentimes attributed to DPRK threat actors, nation-state hackers. Yeah, that. Does virtual protect memory shenanigans to be able to get it into memory, and then ultimately the decrypted payload, just a little bit of a shellcode stub, loads another PE file, another executable, another DLL, whatever, something that can kind of keep running code, but it does some weird stuff. It sort of sets up a little bit of a time bomb. It says, look, if I sleep for 7 days, if I wait and have a little bit of delay here, then I will then go ahead and reach out to command and control servers that it might be able to extract and retrieve and pull from other sources. This means that when, I don't know, the world started to at least sort of see some semblance of this on March 22nd. I don't know if that's when, I believe that's when the first updates, the malicious 3CX updates, were added to this online storage here that we pushed down. But then once the malicious activity kicked off, hey, actually reaching out to the C2 servers, that happened on March 29th. Interestingly enough, 7 days. Look at that delta there. Digging through, showcasing the code that's pertinent there, and then seeing how they reach out and find their appropriate command and control servers. Now, these were all in a GitHub repository. A GitHub repository that seemingly just had a bunch of icon files like .ico. Hey, real quick, sorry, before we go any further on the nitty-gritty technical details, I do want to give a special shout out to today's sponsor. They're new to the crew, and I absolutely love what they're up to. I think it's crazy cool. Please help me give a warm welcome to Flare Systems. Hackers, threat actors, and adversaries work in a business. Cybercrime is a whole enterprise, with attackers always sharing information and access all over the dark web. And your information might just be for sale. But with Flare Systems, you can proactively detect and remediate high-risk external exposure across the dark web and the clear web before more damage is done. Flare Systems offers dark web monitoring and coverage across the threat landscape, from leaky S3 buckets, ransomware blogs, dark web chats, marketplaces, forums, paste sites, shady Telegram channels, and more. If your information is shared anywhere amongst thousands of illicit communities, you're alerted within seconds, not days, and you can respond right away. Flare unifies cyber threat intelligence, digital risk protection, and external attack surface management into a single platform that you can set up in less than 15 minutes. Flare is tracking over 2 million threat actor profiles, and you can drill down to view a threat actor's entire post history. You can even translate or summarize forum postings in entirely different languages common for cyber criminals. Know the enemy before they know you, because attackers shouldn't have the information advantage. Give Flare Systems a try with their 7-day free trial, or jump into a demo to understand your attack surface, track down information exposure, and monitor dark web communities. Get started with Flare Systems with my link below in the video description. Huge thanks to Flare Systems for sponsoring this video. So these icon files are in fact valid, legitimate, real icon files. Like there's a picture there if you open it up in an image viewer, but at the very, very end of the file, it has some weird base 64 strings. Trying to decode that as usual, I don't know, capture the flag style. This feels like a pretty weird CTF, noting its nation-state threat actor activity, but of course, that's encrypted data just as well. You could keep digging into the code, you can see how we could uncover that, and ultimately that pours out all of the potential C2 domains, the command and control servers that we were originally seeing as indicators of compromise that were already present in the other vendors reporting. Whether that's CrowdStrike tracking these, whether it's SentinelOne, Sophos, all the other players in the game here, we're able to see those just as well. Now, I had a note here that GitHub repository is now offline. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if I was the one that like actually made the shoe drop here, but I had sent a request to GitHub. Like I reported that user that it is staging malware, and I said, let's take that down. Let's remove that repository and get that user off the face of the planet. And that's what happened. I got a couple of the emails that were moving back and forth here. Hey, this is when I sent to GitHub, like what, 2:47, almost 3 o'clock today. Please, can you track this thing down? And they did it. A little bit of time later, they end up taking it down, 404. Let me say, that sounds like a good thing, but I don't know. Like, we don't know what's going to come from that next. Like maybe, oh, the staged things that are going to try to detonate will not be able to reach out to those command and control servers right now anyway. But is 3CX still compromised? Like, is their build pipeline for updates and new changes still tampered with and modified, so that does the threat actor still have access to that so that they might change the tradecraft for later detonation, right? That is the gist of the attack chain. There are detection efforts underway. This is how we're kind of tracking it down. Windows Defender Antivirus is, of course, picking it up. Here's how we were kind of tracking between the known bad malicious installers and desktop client app exe files, and then seeing what it might do for the network communications. And of course, like we have some YARA rules here and there. If you want to dig into it, look, you've got it here. So, hey, look, this is very, very new. This is still kind of breaking. This is still updating and dynamic and active right now, but I thought, maybe I could give you an update as to what the heck I'm up to, and maybe you're chasing this thing down just as well. I hope some of those resources, those links, anything that I'll drop in the description here might be able to help you if you're fighting it just as well, but would love to hear your thoughts if you're, I don't know, maybe impacted by this, if you're looking at 3CX just as well, or what else you're thinking. But hey, please do give Flare Systems a try. I would love for you to see, I don't know, maybe there's some shady information out there on the dark web, the ClearNet, that could come from some information espionage following attacks just like this.